Hey then, guys. Alright, so the kit that comes from the Risse Racing Shock website, they have two different revisions. They have a revision A and the revision B. The revision B apparently is on this nut, I guess, is the one that has the octagonal shape or 8 sides, is revision B. The other version, I think, is 6 sides. That's revision A. Choose a seals kit accordingly of whatever you're going to need. This one obviously has 8, so we got revision B. In the kit is going to be a couple different seals. These two seals go to the nut. There's going to be the exterior seals for the bottom cap, which is this bad boy right here. This is the Teflon guide that goes onto, where is it? Excuse me, the piston over here. And then these are the piston seals themselves. The biggest thing that we're going to start with is how to get the piston out of this hole. So when this comes in, this is inserted like so in here. And the way we got it out is by taking an air gun like this, or air handle, putting it to the edge, squeezing, and eventually this will pop out. Just be careful, it does come out with some force. Alright, what else do we got? I'll start with the piston itself. A lot of the tools that I'm using are spoons. I'm not using actual picks. The picks are notorious for damaging seals and cutting the edges. I like to use spoons when I'm doing stuff like this. I'm just going to get into the edge and just gently pry the seal out and just work its way over. Let's set that aside. And we have another one right here, same thing. Start at the edge, work underneath it without damaging the piston, and just pop it out. Just bring it over the edge and just run it. Obviously clean all the stuff up. There's a lot of gunk from a lot of the years of use on my particular Lancair's piston over here, so we'll be cleaning that up with like a fiber-free type of fiber-free cloth. Just get in there, clean all the gunk out. We're going to be putting everything back together dry. And just run along the edge and the race and make sure there's no real dirt left under there, so when the seal goes in there, you have a nice fitted seal. Okay. Some guys like to also use parts washers or mineral spirits to clean this stuff. I don't know if this stuff will be reactive to that. It seems to be Teflon or like a Delrin type of a plastic. So try it at your own risk. I didn't do it, didn't need to. Everything just came right off by wiping. So user discretion advised, I guess you could say. When you look at it, all the gunk is cleaned up from the races. When it comes to installing the new seals, you always want to make sure you have a nice clean surface. Your hands are clean of all debris, oils, such things like that. Our old seals were there, and here's our new seals. There is an orientation to it. You don't want to bend it or flex it. Each side has two surfaces, I guess you could say, or two little indentations. You always want to have an equal side or parallel throughout the entire race, because that's going to act as your seal barrier, and it's going to be quad sealed basically. This goes on dry. You don't want any fluids underneath it. You're going to basically start it at the edge and just make sure you run it flat the entire way around. I use this tool again just to run it along, and you lightly stretch it as you're pulling it and allow it to just fit right into place. And we're just rotating it up 360 degrees, making sure that the seal is nicely seated all the way through. Same thing on the other side. Going to start it, then grab our spoon, use the back side of it, start it, and just lightly run it along with your fingers. Hopefully you guys can see that really well. Pull the spoon out, and our piston is basically assembled right here. We'll set that aside. Now is our lock ring. This thing has quite a bit of dirt and 3 seals that we're going to be swapping out on it. You have your first seal right here. You're going to pop the top right here out. This one you might need to use a flat surface of some kind. and gently pry. Again, while we don't care about the old seals and we're going to be not caring about the condition of them, we don't want to damage any of the aluminum. This seems to be a nicely made billet piece, and I'm sure if you deform it, it won't seal well. Then you have the next one. This one's going to be a little bit more difficult. This one's a harder material that is in there. So we're basically going to do the same thing. You may want to do this one upside down actually. We're going to reach in with the spoon again. Reach into it and basically pry it out. This one you might need a second hand. Can you see that? So I'm kind of prying away at the first seal that I was mentioning that's embedded into it. So you're going to just reach in. And let me grab a second little spoon just to get into there, like a forceps almost, and just slowly work it out. And you got to pull that seal out. I tried to just reassemble this just to keep it, just in case the old seals are actually in decent condition for that, for what it is, but I'm not going to obviously reuse them. Same thing again. There's a lot of dirt built up inside of this. I don't know if you guys can see on the video there. We're just going to clean all this off. I would, in this particular case, since it's aluminum, I would use like a brake clean or something that's non-chlorinated. Clean up the rough debris first, and then you could use the spray to really get into the crevices and just clean all the oils and have a nice flat seal, or clean seal, excuse me. One hell of a day. You guys can see what the color of that stuff looks like. Quite dirty. Here's another clean layer of this. Also, some people might be wondering why I'm not using a screwdriver to like really pry this material into there to clean it up. Again, I don't want to scratch or damage any of the surfaces internally to here. That will affect the seal performance, and I just don't want to risk it. Everything is softened up because it's all oil based and it's always been submersed in oil, that you really don't have to use much force to really clean any of this stuff out. Alright. That's what a nice clean seal looks like. Then we have our third seal on the top. So use this fork right over here. That just pops right on off. The new seal that comes in, it's a smaller seal. This one is going to look a little like it's the wrong size, but this one will stretch over the exterior area that's designed for it. Nice and clean. Excuse me. This one you just run your hands. You have a nice sealed finished surface there. Then comes the fun part of this one. You'll notice that it's got the double edge on the top, single edge on the bottom. This one is, yes, threaded side up, double edge side up. So this is the one that you're gonna, or basically down. You're gonna just start it in your fingers. So it'll be a little bit of a nightmare to get in. Once you start it, just work your way all the way around into the crevices. Eventually you have to kind of stretch the gasket or the seal against it, and eventually will fit all the way through. You want to make sure you get the orientation on this right, because if you don't, it's basically going to be always scraping against this seal body right here, or the piston body here. If you have in the wrong orientation, the oil will basically leak out and it'll allow the gas to capture into the oil. Versus if you have it the right way, it'll always keep the oil within these holes over here, which it leaks back into. It's basically a piston that runs against this. You want to always have a lubrication surface. Now the next seal that we're going to install is going to be this seal right here. This one goes, how did I do this one? This one goes upside down. This one has a chamfered edge to it. Basically just install that right there. And same thing, run it all the way into the race and just work it in slowly, and it eventually will fit all the way through. And that's how you reinstall this. Now you're going to run into a big problem of installing this in the correct orientation through here against this seal. Remember, we had basically an edge that rises up, and it's a scraper against this piston. What I did was I used the other side's body to put it backwards on, compress down that seal with a press, and then I pushed the other body against it, so the seal, when you run it along the whole edge, it just runs across instead of basically going against the edge of this surface right here and getting cut. It's a little bit of a difficult process. I recommend getting a vice grip or something to basically press this down. I'll show you guys a picture of how I do it later. You can pause it now. Alright, what I'm doing right now is I'm going to be cleaning the internal of where the piston body is going to be seated. I already cleaned out most of the oil. I just want to do a final little flush with some brake clean. Again, this is non-chlorinated, non-caustic. You don't want to damage it. It's got a nice surface internally. I'm going to run my rag, clean it out. Make sure there's no foreign debris, no parts, no particles. No dirt, no grime. You can see it's nice and clean in there. The next part, what I do is I'll take a silicone spray or some sort of a lubricant, whatever you guys have available to you, and I will spray the inside of the walls as well as the threads, because that's going to be the most dangerous surfaces for these seals. And also spray down these pistons really well. You want them to be as looped up as possible. If this gets damaged, the entire process is useless. And then we just insert this right into here. Okay, let me just see if I could get. There we go. And it goes in by hand. My recommendation is squeeze it down all the way forward, because you're going to need to get the oil level properly set. And I just squeeze it all the way and it goes all the way forward. And that's it. Once this is sealed, dry it out. You don't want any oil or any foreign chemical in here, because you're going to be filling this chamber up with nitrogen later. Make sure your threads are nice and clean. And that is it. And that's how she looks inside there. Now don't go ahead and put this cap back on just yet. You're going to need to eventually put this ring back on. This is going to be connecting the liquid side of the piston. And this is where it's a little tricky. The threads go up on this surface right here. Be careful. I have a method where, like I said, I use the other body of the other side to compress down the lip that's inside of here. Otherwise, if you try to just force this by hand, by forcing the correct orientation, you will tear this lip over here, and then that seal is basically damaged and useless to you, and all the fluid that you put into your piston will leak out. I'll again post a video or a picture of this in a minute. While we're at this cap though, this thing is filthy. We're going to take the old seal off, which you will see is this very thin seal. Again, it's very oily, very dirty. Take a rag, let's clean up all the rough junk off of it first. By the way, guys, the fluid that's in here smells disgusting. I'll give you guys a fair warning, use a well-ventilated area. Let's clean the threads so we have something nice to work with. Clean that pretty fairly easily. Again, not a lot of force goes onto it. Main piston area and all that stuff is all nice and clean. There's no more issues. And then we go to the step where we reinstall our seal. This is a new seal that came in the bag. Just going to run this across that and work it all the way around. And that's a new seal that's on. Once you are to the point where you get this back on and you have everything sealed up, ready to go, you're going to work the new guide ring all the way around. One thing I did was I just basically crushed this down a little bit tighter than the actual radius or diameter of the piston. And eventually just fold the edges down a little bit more as well. And what you'll be able to do is take this. Oh, it's a little disgusting. Let's clean that up before we put that on there. Okay. Nice and dry. We're going to basically run a brand new guide right onto here. Right along, and that should lock right into place. We have our new piston. Once you manage to get this onto the piston here, it's pretty straightforward. You take your cap, thread that back in. Onto this cap, you have a threaded hole. That's where your Schrader valve fitting is going to go, which looks like this. There's going to be a little O-ring on the bottom of it that you're going to replace. That's part of the kit as well. I've already replaced mine. Thread them in. You don't go ham with it. Don't go crazy tightening it. It's just tight enough that it bottoms out and it tightens up against the seal. You don't need to add any type of a silicone. You don't need to add any type of a foreign sealing agent or anything like that. The joint should do its job. Once you have that section of it done, let's go and see if we can push this across. I gotta push this. You're gonna be filling up this cup upside down with 5-weight shock oil. I use the stuff that Fox Racing uses or sells. You could just go to your generic motorcycle shop or anything like that. You fill your fluid right up to the bottom threads. You're going to then insert your piston, start it, and you're going to run this all the way down until it starts threading, and that will fill all the way in. And you'll have already your base, and you're basically at that point reassembled this, and it is done.